All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Pops and Drops podcast.
What up, people?
Today, I think we'll have a discussion that synthesizes some of the discussions we've had in the past, and I want to use a framework of energy density.
Okay, whatever the hell that means.
The joules per unit of energy that you can get out of a resource.
Okay.
So if you think about energy density in terms of the amount of volume of either land or air that is required to sustain a human being. So, for instance, if your energy is supplied to you by burning wood,
Yeah.
a typical household might require an acre of wood to provide their energy needs for a year or whatever. So think about humans using energy and the space or land that's required to provide the fuel for the energy that they require. That's energy density, essentially.
Okay.
That makes sense? So one of the least dense sources of energy is sunlight and wind in terms of the amount of power that is generated. So, for instance, you might, for what you would get out of an acre of wood in terms of energy output,
Yeah.
might require, a 250-foot wind turbine.
Okay.
So that's the framework to use. And a researcher named Michael Schellenberger did some work and synthesized work of others, looking at the relationship between societies shifting from forms of energy that are less dense to more dense, and the relationship between quality of life of individuals, but also the relationship between that society and the environment. So the best example is probably something like the Amazon rainforest. Okay.
Which we've
Following me?
decimated.
So what happens is, as a society moves from a less dense fuel source like wood to a more dense fuel source like liquefied natural gas or petroleum, their quality of life improves because they're using a more efficient source of energy. So they can get more energy out of less resource. And the environmental impact goes down because now they aren't having to burn down acres and acres of wood to provide the fuel for their energy use. Following me?
Instead, they're fracking and they're poisoning the water.
They're potentially fracking. They may just be getting natural gas from the deposits that naturally occurred when you drill an oil well. So there's natural gas all over the place. And obviously there are environmental impacts of any kind of energy fuel extraction. But if you look at the environmental impact of extracting the fuel, the environmental impact goes down as the energy density goes up.
Of extracting the fuel, not necessarily of burning the fuel.
No, even of burning the fuel.
Okay.
The net climatic and environmental impact of wood as a source of energy versus natural gas as a source of energy is not even close. Wood is much worse.
Yeah, you don't want to cut down the rainforest.
Exactly. Right. And you don't want to burn what they call biomass fuels. So bagasse, the leftovers after you use sugar cane to make sugar, burning that stuff, same thing. It's putting particulates into the atmosphere.
Yes.
Right. So
we should be investing in better solar.
Solar is one of the least dense. So when you look at,
but it has the smallest environmental impact.
That's not correct, because when you look at that, you're not accounting for the environmental impact of mining the materials to produce the solar panels and then disposing of the toxic materials when the solar panels exceed their natural lifespan.
So we need to make better solar panels.
Well, but my point is the energy density of the sunlight that's hitting the solar panels is one of the least dense sources of energy.
Yeah, so we need to make more efficient solar panels.
That you can't make the sun more powerful.
No, but you can make the way that we catch the rays more efficient.
But you can't.
How do you know?
Because they've been working on it for decades and decades. And what happens is the most they can do is make the solar farms bigger, and they can do all kinds of things with mirrors to focus the sunlight. The photovoltaic cells don't produce enough energy to create a centralized energy production solution. So what Elon Musk is saying is use solar tiles for residential roofs.
Yeah.
So everybody, you're not getting your power off the grid anymore. You're getting your power from the photovoltaic tiles on your roof and your Tesla Energy Wall battery pack. Right? So you take the centralized production of energy out of the equation. Everybody's now responsible for generating their own individual energy. Two things. It's not consistent, obviously, that you have cloudy days, you have the nighttime, you have all these issues that require battery backup. And the environmental impact of producing and then disposing of the batteries is much worse than the environmental impact of mining natural gas.
Currently, because we haven't been researching solar panels.
That is not true. We have been researching solar panels. Yes, we have been researching solar panels for 2 decades. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been dedicated to researching improving solar technology. There's just physical limitations. Think about it this way. You have a source, a fuel source, okay? And then you have some kind of way of catching or capitalizing on the energy that's in that source, okay? Right? The source, the fuel source of what's called renewables, solar and wind, is so weak that no matter how good your receptors are, you're not going to.
So why can't you have solar panels that run a hydro thing?
To what end?
To constantly create energy. Like the Hoover dams, don't they create a massive amount of energy?
That's from the potential of the water behind the dam running through the turbines.
So you have solar panels plugged into turbines next to your house that are running water on a loop. And that's constantly putting power back in.
You don't understand the theory of conservation of energy. So the amount of energy that you would need to spin the water to turn the turbine to generate more energy is the same amount. That doesn't gain you anything.
No, but once you get it going, then you wouldn't need batteries.
How?
Because you take the energy from the panels, You funnel it into the hydro things. Like when the panels shut off, they funnel their energy into the hydro things, and those keep going, and then that
You
funnels
mean
back into the house.
batteries?
You don't need batteries. I'm saying you use a hydro in
When
replace
you
of
say
batteries.
hydro, what do you mean?
Just some sort of turbine that moves water. That you just got to get it going.
Okay.
It needs to be
You
some
don't-
self-contained.
There is no such thing.
Yet. That's what I'm saying. You're thinking within a very limited. You're thinking within
I'm
a very
thinking-
limited. You're thinking in a
Like
box, man.
How science works, like how things actually work.
You sound like
Do you
someone.
know
You
the-
sound like someone who's staring at a black and white TV and being like, "This is so crazy.
Okay.
There's no way it could ever get
Well-
any better. There's no way they could actually increase the pixels because scientifically that's impossible right now." That's what it sounds like when you're saying these things.
Great. There is a law in physics called the conservation of energy. Okay. You can't create more energy using a combination of solar and hydro.
This is about. It's not creating more energy. You said that the problem is the batteries. It's about storing that energy, transforming that energy.
Yeah.
If everybody had solar panels on the roof and a hydro thing that hasn't been invented yet attached to the side of their house, then you wouldn't need the batteries.
The problem
So then there
is-
would be zero
The problem
environmental
is
impact.
the solar. So you haven't dealt with the solar panels, and there's no such thing as a hydro thing
Yet.
that would replace batteries.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
Yet.
no way it would work because
don't
of
know
the
that.
because of
You're-
conservation of energy. Let's walk this through so you can understand this. Okay, the solar panels are going to collect, let's say, 5 joules of energy per hour.
Okay.
All right. So that 5 joules can go.
Run the house during the day.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how this hydro thing works. If
That's
you're
for when-
using, if
that's
you're
for
using,
when- that's for when that it's in replace of batteries.
listen, think about. Do you know how? I mean, think about energy as a fluid. Okay, you only have so much fluid. You have this flow of this fluid.
Yeah.
Okay, it's energy. If you're getting 5 units of energy coming out of your solar panels, okay,
Uh-huh.
and so some of that, if you're going to run your house during the day, some of that 5 units goes into the house.
Uh-huh.
You may have some left over
Yeah.
during the day while the sun is shining.
Okay.
So that, let's say you have 3 units going into the house and 2 left over to do something with.
Uh-huh.
And you're saying you're going to put it into this hydro mechanism.
Yeah.
What does the hydro mechanism do with those 2 units?
It just runs the thing so that there's constantly energy being produced.
So it runs a wheel.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, so do you know how a turbine works in a dam? Water hits the blades of a turbine. The weight and flow of the water spins the turbine.
Yeah.
And that generates electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to take two units of your solar energy
Uh-huh.
and put it into this hydro thing.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to, when you say hydro, that implies there's water in this somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does, what is in this hydro thing? What happens?
It starts going.
So you've got 2 units of energy coming off the solar panels that are going to exert that 2 units of energy to spin a hydro,
To get it going.
to get it going.
Uh-huh. And then when you need more energy, you just
Well,
pull it from that.
It's not going to keep going unless you keep pumping energy into it. What do you mean to get it going?
That it will start creating its own energy.
So it won't produce more than you're putting into it.
No, but it will store what you're putting in, and that's the
No,
problem.
you're spinning. So if you spin a turbine, you use 2 units of your energy to spin a turbine.
Uh-huh.
The most you're going to get out of it, and that would only be if you had 100% efficiency, is 2 units worth of energy. It's not going to make new energy. If you're pumping 2 units of energy in to get it to spin at a rate that 2 units will drive it,
Uh-huh.
then on the other end coming out, you're going to get 2 units minus whatever the resistance is from the machinery of the turbine. So you might get 1.8 8 out if you had a highly efficient turbine.
But you said that the biggest problem is storing it like a battery.
The environmental impact comes from the production of the solar panels, the disposal of the chemicals and things that are in the solar panels when they reach the end of their useful life, the production of the batteries, and the disposal of the batteries.
So we need to make better solar panels and more efficient batteries that don't have such a big environmental impact.
Okay, they don't exist.
Yeah, because we aren't researching them, because we're spending millions upon millions of dollars on gas guzzlers. And
20 years. The funding for solar research has been going on for 20 years.
How long has the television been around?
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
How long has the television been around?
The solar technology that is available now is the result of 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars of research.
Yeah.
It's not the issue.
It is.
The issue is the energy density of the source. The sunlight and the wind.
The sun produces the most energy out of anything. We just need a better net to catch it. That's what you're not understanding.
Well, we have the entire surface of the earth catching sunlight every day. It's called plants.
Okay, well, then that's what we need to base our solar panels off of. A more naturalistic approach.
The issue becomes the amount of land. Remember, we talked about an acre of forest?
You're talking like computers used to be the size of rooms, and now they're the size of my phone.
You're talking like you live in fantasy world where hope is a strategy. You're just hoping that scientists are going to come up.
Hope is a strategy. That's how things happen, man. People envision them, they think about them, and then they work on them. That's how things are made.
Okay,
You're stuck in this past mindset, and it's constant. That's the problem. You're not looking towards the future. You're just trying to expose the bad things that are currently happening. You're like, solar panels can't get any better. That's like if someone's saying computers can't get any better or more efficient. It's ridiculous with the advent of technology and the constant reinvention. You're stuck in the past.
Do you think that hoping things will be different would change the way that physics works? Do you think hoping that atoms will somehow reorganize and become a different form of atom is going to be the solution for the world's energy problems?
No, but
atoms are atoms. Molecules are molecules. Okay, these things are physical. They work in a particular way, and we know very well how they work. If we didn't know how they worked, we couldn't have built the Large Hadron Collider. We're finding out new things all the time about the nuances, but we know how these things work. Okay? And what I'm telling you is
you know how a black and white television works, but you didn't know how to create 4K
or an atom.
Yeah.
We know how atoms work.
Okay.
We've split them and made nuclear bombs out of them. We know how they work.
So if we can make a nuclear bomb out of just splitting an atom, don't you think that there's other sources without fracking and without sucking and without destroying our environment?
Back to our discussion of energy density. So we've gone from the least dense forms of energy source, wind and solar, to more dense forms of energy source, biomass, wood and coal. Then even more dense forms of energy source, natural gas and oil. And now let's talk about the most dense form of energy fuel, and that's nuclear power. For the amount of space and fuel that you spend on a nuclear power plant,
which destroys the environment.
No, it doesn't. And you can get rid of, that's the problem, is that is a myth that has been propagated.
Chernobyl wasn't a thing?
Chernobyl was a thing. It didn't destroy the environment.
It did destroy Chernobyl.
Yeah, it burned down. A building burned down.
No, it contaminated and destroyed.
That's a myth.
No, have you seen all the documentaries about it?
The HBO documentary on Chernobyl has been debunked by scientists. They said it was sensationalist, and that while the long-term impacts are, it's been 30 years.
What about all the birth defects? All the people who were contaminated? Like, that's real, dude.
Not compared to the amount of death and destruction from air pollution from coal plants. If you look at the actual numbers of human casualties that result from different forms of energy production, the negative impacts on the human population from the environment and from accidents and from everything is correlated with energy density. As the energy density gets higher, the negative impacts on the environment and humans get lower. So nuclear energy, yes, nuclear energy is the
But Chernobyl
safest.
happened.
Yes.
So it's not the safest.
Okay, compared to, yes, it is.
No, it's not. Chernobyl happened. And that other one in Japan. There was another one in Japan.
Yeah.
Fukushima or whatever.
Fukushima. More people died in the evacuation than died from a result of the accident. So here, most people don't understand.
If there wasn't an accident in the first place, man.
Most people, yeah, they would have. You know how? Because the only alternative is for humans to stop using energy and to stop living in cities.
Or to focus and to put the resources behind making better nets for the sun and for the wind.
It's the energy density of the source molecules that matter. It's not, okay? It's the photons. It's the concentration of photons coming from the sun. You can't get more energy out than is there. You would have to have.
We're not catching the right amount.
You would have to cover Texas in solar panels
with the current technology, not with technology that we don't have yet.
With 100% effective technology.
You don't know that.
Listen,
you don't know that.
You know how many photons are coming in every square inch of space that's being hit by sunlight. You do know that. You do know the total available energy coming from the sun.
And that is the most energy.
No, not in concentration.
Because we don't know how to catch it right.
No, you don't understand what I'm saying. You do not understand what I'm saying. If you had a 100% effective solar panel,
you don't know what that would be like.
That caught all of the energy from the sun. If you had a 100% effective solar panel that caught all the energy from the sun, okay, you would, in order to replace. In order to fill the energy needs of the United States, you would have to cover an area the size of Texas in solar panels.
With the current technology.
No, with the 100% effective technology, with the best technology.
Again, you don't know that because you're basing it on surface value. You're basing it on surface area. You're basing technology based on the fact that computers used to be the size of rooms. And you're saying right now, there's no way that this can get any smaller. There's no way it can get any better.
You don't understand what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying. You don't understand what you're saying.
The sun generates the sun generates energy in the form of photons. Do you understand that? That's what the sun's energy is. Do you understand that?
Yeah, UV light.
It's not UV light. It's across the whole spectrum. It's photons coming from the sun.
Okay.
You understand? That is energy coming from the sun.
Yeah.
We can measure how much energy that is. With our current instrumentation, we know the amount of energy that is coming from the sun.
Okay.
And hitting every square inch of the surface of the earth.
Okay.
We know the amount of that energy.
Okay.
Our current solar technology at its best can only capture 48% of that.
Okay.
If you could, with breakthroughs in technology, capture 100% of that, you're still only doubling the efficiency of solar panels from their current state. When you get to 100, when you get to a perfect solar panel that captures all of the available energy, with the perfect solar panel that captures 100% of the available energy, which from an engineering perspective is impossible, the most you'd ever get is 99.5, because there's always going to be loss. But even if you had the perfect solar panel that captured 100% of all of the available energy coming from the sun and hitting the Earth's surface, you would still need to cover Texas in solar panels, the 100% efficient solar panel.
Where's that coming from? Where's that statistic coming from?
That's coming from Schellenberg's research and how much energy the United States uses. The United States uses hundreds of terabytes of energy.
Okay. So we need to launch a satellite up there that's the size of Texas.
And the amount of fuel that you would use to do that, and the amount of maintenance that it would cost to keep it going, and the amount of loss from the collection of the energy and the retransmission to the surface of the earth would make it untenable. It wouldn't.
You don't know that.
It wouldn't.
We could cover the whole other side of the moon. We could cover the moon in it. The moon picks up rays from the sun too, doesn't it? Let's cover the moon in solar panels and shoot the energy to the earth. Why not?
Well, first of all, you don't have a technology that would shoot energy from the
Yet.
moon to the earth.
Yet.
Okay, well, 1,000 years from now, when they're still trying to develop that technology, the earth will be dark and everyone will be dead. You need to live in reality. I'm talking about...
You need to live in reality and understand how quickly things are progressing.
Fine, but I'm talking about engineering, and I'm talking about science, and I'm talking about the things we know.
Yeah, everything is science fiction before it becomes reality.
Sure.
Everything.
The idea...
So why shouldn't you
make ideas? You should make ideas, but the ideas need to live within the bounds of physical reality.
No, they don't, because then they would never exist. My cell phone would never exist. The things that's recording us right now would never exist if we only worked within the boundaries of what we perceived was reality. That's your problem.
That's not true.
Yes, it is true.
Cell phones are based on radio technology.
And
it's
radio
old.
technology. That's another one. Someone had to come up with that or think about that.
Yes.
That didn't exist within the boundaries of their
Yeah,
world.
it did.
No, it did not.
Radio does not supersede physics. Radio works within the physical boundaries of the known world.
Did they know that?
Yes.
Back way before radio was in, you think that people in the 1500s knew that? No. They didn't. They were like, that's impossible. That can never happen because we can't observe it. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand. You don't know the possibility. You got to think outside of the box, man.
Okay. But one thing we do know from observation,
we don't really know anything.
Observations over hundreds of years is that as societies move from fuel sources with lower energy density to fuel sources with higher energy density, it makes the environment better. It makes the quality of life better.
Fossil fuels and natural gas makes the environment better. That's what you're saying, and that's
better than the alternative.
Ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Better than the alternative. Yes.
God. You need to talk to Bill Nye, bro.
Liquefied natural gas is cleaner than wood. Do you disagree?
I don't know, but I know that it poisons
let me tell
water.
You that what?
I know that fracking poisons water.
There's some but there's no energy.
You just
there's
agreed
no
to that.
Energy source.
So you want to poison our water?
Localized right around the well, and it can be filtered. There is no energy source that has no environmental impact.
Solar.
Wrong. We just talked about that. It's horrible for the environment.
How?
Solar power is horrible for the environment.
How?
Because of
we haven't created nets.
Because
we haven't created better nets.
Because of the chemicals that are used in the production of the solar panels, and because of the disposal of the solar panels. You know what happens with old solar panels? The rich countries ship it to the poor countries. So people in Africa and the Middle East are having to deal with the environmental waste of our old solar panels. It's very racist.
Oh my God.
Solar panels are very racist.
That is the most.
No, it's not.
You can't say that. That's ridiculous.
They are shipping 20-year-old solar panels to Africa because we don't want to deal with the environmental impact of the old solar panels. It's true. Look it up. It's horrible.
So again, we need to invest on making better nets that don't have such a negative environmental impact.
You can do that, but it's a waste of time.
No, it's not.
Because the source of the energy is too diffuse. You don't have the energy density to make it worthwhile. You're going backwards. If you think about it in terms of a spectrum and progression through time, societies succeed that move from low energy dense sources of energy to high
you don't know
energy
that.
dense. Yes, we do know that.
No, you don't know
yes,
that.
we do.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you don't. You went around 100,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. You don't know what kind of energy they were using.
Okay, in the period of recorded history, which is the last 4,000 years, it's clear that that societies that move even during the same period of time, societies that have societies in our current time that rely on wood for energy versus natural gas for energy, the countries with lower energy density fuel sources are worse off, both in terms of human quality of life and the environment. Both.
Okay.
The key to solving climate change and our environmental problems is moving to a higher energy density
Burning
source.
more fossil fuels.
No, replacing fossil fuels with nuclear energy. I'm telling you, all of the hype about Chernobyl and Fukuyama is essentially a myth that is propagated by the oil companies and the natural gas companies. They don't want anybody to use nuclear energy because it puts them out of business.
And it creates nuclear waste,
which is much, much safer than the petroleum sludge that comes out of gasoline refining. Nobody ever thinks about the fact that it's not nuclear waste versus no environmental impact. It's nuclear waste versus the environmental impacts of burning down the rainforest, or nuclear waste versus the petroleum sludge from oil refining, or nuclear waste versus the earthquakes from fracking, or whatever the environmental impact of the alternative energy sources is. When you weigh it based on an apples to apples comparison, nuclear is much safer than everything else.
And what about those giant stacks that are pumping all that crap into the air?
At a nuclear power plant?
Yeah.
That's steam. Those
Steam
are cooling towers.
Steam that includes nuclear sludge and shit.
No. The nuclear energy is completely contained. So you don't know how a nuclear power plant works. There are nuclear fuel rods. The nuclear material is in a self-contained sealed system. The outside of that system gets very hot, and they put water onto the outside of the closed system to keep it cool, and that water turns to steam and comes out of the
Then where
top
does
of
the
the
nuclear
cooling
waste come
towers.
from?
What?
Where does the nuclear waste and sludge come from?
There is no nuclear waste and sludge. That's a Simpsons episode. That's not reality.
There is no such thing as nuclear waste?
Spent nuclear rods, right? Spent nuclear rods get encased in steel and concrete. It's a solid. It's not liquid.
So there's no such thing as nuclear waste then?
The spent fuel rods.
And how do they dispose of those?
They store them usually on property. It doesn't take up much room because the nuclear energy is so dense. It does not take up a lot of room to store the spent nuclear fuel rods because they're not very big. They're this big. They're like 3 feet long.
And there's no radiation?
There's no radiation after they're sealed. No, they're sealed.
There's no radiation. The plant does not produce radiation. That doesn't give people cancer?
No.
So Aaron Brockovich wasn't a thing?
No. I mean, that was about a leak.
At a nuclear power plant?
Yeah.
So what was leaking? You said that there's no such thing as...
Well, like I said, there's a self-contained unit, right?
Uh-huh.
And
all those people who got cancer and died, and that wasn't a thing either? That wasn't an environmental impact?
Much smaller than the environmental impact of the alternatives. Yes, maybe 4 or 5 people at the McKeeson plant.
No, there was thousands of people. That's why there was thousands of people that were participating in that lawsuit against that company. That they all got cancer from just living near there. Just living near the nuclear power plant.
You're talking about dumping wastewater into the groundwater system.
Wastewater from a nuclear power plant.
But not from the cooling system.
It's from the same place.
So that
you just said that there's no such thing as nuclear waste. That was nuclear waste.
So
you want to give people cancer?
Listen. When the fuel rods are done and before they encase them, they have to cool them down. So they put them in a cooling pool. And that cooling pool does get some radiation. And if that cooling pool gets released into the groundwater, then that can cause problems. That's what happened in that one instance. But there's been like 60 nuclear power plants in the country. That's happened one time. So, and it was an accident. It was not something that normally happens. So, and the people that got sick directly from that were not thousands of people. It wasn't thousands of people. In the United States, in the whole history of the nuclear industry, the total death toll from the nuclear industry is 100 people. Yes.
That includes Chernobyl and Fukushima?
In the United States, the total death toll.
You're talking about the world, not just the United States.
Right. But what I'm trying to give you some scale. Okay, think about 50, we're at 70 years now. 70 years of nuclear energy in the United States. Okay. 100 deaths.
Here.
That's
100.
Just think for a minute, okay?
You gotta stop thinking about just the United States.
I'm going to give you some comparisons.
Okay.
And these are the numbers we have.
Okay.
Same 70-year period. Okay, where 100 people died from nuclear energy related accidents. Okay, 300,000 people died from walking.
Okay.
So you are going to essentially make everybody worse off because you bought this myth that the oil and natural gas companies have propagated about how dangerous nuclear energy is, because you're worried about one.
That's the other problem that you have. You don't seem to care about actual people. If the numbers add up. That's all. You don't care if someone dies.
More people died from oil and natural gas than from nuclear. That's why I do care about people. Yes, I do care about people. When you say the numbers don't add up, those are the numbers I'm talking about. What is doing more harm? Oil and natural gas do less harm than burning wood and biomass. It has higher energy density, so it kills less
we're
people.
not in the 1500s. We don't need to burn wood. That's a durr moment.
Right. So nuclear and wood and natural gas do less environmental damage than solar and wind. I don't agree with that. The environmental costs are hidden because you don't think about the manufacturer of the solar panels. And
so we need to improve the manufacturing of solar panels.
After 20 years of research
just
and
20 years, that's what I'm saying.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
20 years. Just 20 years.
We've gotten to the point.
You're talking about just 20 years. You have no idea what's possible.
You go ahead, waste your time for another 50 years. In the meantime, people are dying. People are dying. Birds are dying. You know that those giant wind turbines kill a lot of large birds. Here's something that's interesting. The federal government pays millions of dollars to try and save the California condor. It's an endangered species. It's a large, you know what a California condor is, right? It's that big giant bird with like an 8-foot wingspan. Yes?
Sure.
Okay, anyway, California condor, it's a giant bird of prey. It's bigger than eagles, bigger than vultures. It's enormous. And there may be like, 20 or 25 of them left in the world. So the federal government spends your tax dollar, well, if you paid taxes, spends my tax dollars on preserving.
I've paid taxes.
Yeah.
I paid $10,000 worth of taxes last year.
Okay, well, some of that went to preserve the California condor. At the same time, the federal government is spending your tax dollars to preserve the California condor. It is paying tax dollars to subsidize wind farms that kill the California condor. That's your federal government at work.
Okay.
Wind farms they kill.
It's a good thing the federal government's about to change.
Well, I hope it is. I hope it fundamentally changes because we just elected somebody who's been there for the last 50 years who's responsible for most of this insanity.
That's ridiculous.
He hasn't been there for 47 years? Yes,
he
has. Right. All right. Wind farms kill big birds, wind farms kill bats, and wind farms kill insects. It's very damaging to the natural ecology. These giant wind turbines, they kill a ton of important animals in the ecosystem.
Okay.
All right. People don't ever factor that in when they say, "Oh, wind and solar, it's renewable, it's so great." Okay, solar farms where they lay out these solar panels over dozens of square miles. These huge solar farms that they have in California, immense. They kill all of the wild animals that are in those areas. Tortoises, lizards, different endangered species of cacti have been eradicated.
So we need to make more efficient solar panels that are smaller that can capture more sunlight.
Okay, we're right now at 49% efficiency.
Yeah, we need to be at 100%, and they need to be the size of a watch.
You know how big a solar panel is, right?
Yeah, it's big, and it needs to be small.
When it gets to so think about the one that's there now. That's 49% efficiency. If you get to 100% efficiency, that's double 49, essentially.
Yeah.
That means it's half as big. So the smallest it would ever get to get the same amount of power out of the current ones is half their size. That's the limit.
You don't know that.
Yes, it's math. It's math.
Yeah, and the people who believe computers would only be the size of the room said the same thing. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand. You don't know what's possible.
But that's my point. We do know what's possible.
No, you don't.
Because
you don't live 100 years in the future. You have no idea what's possible. You have no idea.
We can measure the amount of energy that's coming from the sun.
With instruments that we currently are using now, we don't truly know.
Well, then you're not talking about solar panels. You're talking about some new technology that gets energy out of the ether.
Okay, that's another thing that we need to research.
And that would be more dense than nuclear. So that would be the next progression. But if you think about it as a progression, solar panels, photovoltaic solar panels, and wind turbines are least energy dense. They're on the far
you keep
end of the
saying
spectrum.
That, but it doesn't make
then
any
you have
difference to me
biomass and wood. Then you have natural gas and coal, and then you have nuclear. Okay, if there's something on the other side of nuclear, that would be cool. That would be probably like in the 0-point energy realm, where instead of using nuclear, you're using some kind of magnetism to capture the energy out of the strong and weak bonds, however that would work. So I don't know. That's sort of the airy-fairy stuff, and that's where if you want to do research, that's where you should be concentrating, not trying to make solar voltaic cells more efficient. That is the least energy dense. Oil is 30 times more energy dense than solar. 30 times. That means it's 30 times more efficient. That means it takes 30 times more space and resource to produce the same amount of energy from solar that you get from 1 unit of petroleum. Currently. And in the future, at the best, it would be 15, because if you go from 49% efficiency to 98% efficiency, you're still only doubling what you're doing now. So if it's 30 times...
You're setting a limitation. You just keep setting limitations.
You think I'm setting the limitation? You think I dictated the laws of physics? I'm the omnipresent, I'm the omniscient God of the universe.
You are setting a limitation within your own brain.
Physics.
You're setting a limitation within your own brain. You're saying that things are impossible. When nothing is impossible. You don't know, man.
Okay. Well, if nothing is impossible, then we don't need to worry about any of this, because you're going to wake up tomorrow and their climate change won't be a problem because everybody wished it away.
No, climate change will be a problem because people like you don't care.
People like me are the ones who care and are trying to do something about it. The people who don't care are the ones who say, we should worry about the climate. All these celebrities that fly their private jets to conferences in Sicily to talk about how terrible climate change is. Meanwhile, they've spent the entire carbon output of a American household for a year just to fly their private jet back and forth there. It's the hypocrisy of the celebrities that's the issue.
So you don't think bringing awareness is important?
No, it's not bringing awareness. It's not about bringing awareness. It's about virtue signaling. It's about getting the next movie deal. It's about flying around the world in your private jet and having an excuse that you're trying to support the environment to do it.
I don't think Greta flies around in a private jet.
No, Greta, just to give you a great example of how stupid this is, Greta, to avoid the environmental impact of flying in airplanes, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean from Europe to the United States with a crew on the sailboat who, as soon as she landed, 4 of them got on an airplane and flew back to Europe. If she had just flown, it would have had half the environmental impact that her sailboat trip.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah. It's pretty ridiculous.
No, your thought pattern is ridiculous. Your thought pattern is ridiculous.
No, it's about looking at the entire system instead of the excuse in some little virtue signaling, make me feel good tweet, instead of thinking about the real numbers and what's really going on. And if you look at what's really going on, countries that move from less energy dense sources of fuel to more energy dense sources have a lower impact on the environment.
That's a moment. You're saying that that people's lives are better now than they were 100 years ago.
Because they move to more dense sources of energy.
Yeah, that's duh. Everyone knows that.
Okay, well then the next step is nuclear. Move away from fossil fuels to nuclear. And then after that, something we may discover about energy derived from magnetic forces of, I don't know, some new element or some futuristic stuff that what's his name was working on, the guy from Area 51, the element 151 thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the guy who saw the aliens.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know. He doesn't say he saw aliens.
He saw the craft.
The crafts, for sure, but not the aliens. He said he was walking by a door, and that was that whole thing with the alien body autopsy and everything. And everybody attributed that to him, and he said he never said that. He just said he walked by a door, and it looked like they were working on something that was the size of a child. He didn't necessarily say it was alien, but Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bob Lazar. Hope you're doing well, buddy.
Well, where is he? Is he alive?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a lab. He's working on material science, and
You said it shout out to Bob Lazar. I hope you're okay, buddy. He said it he's...
Well, I mean, people persecute him and people make fun of him and chase him around, and he's a hero, so people should treat him with respect.
Didn't he bring a bunch of his friends to where Area 52 is? Or it's not actually Area 51, it's Area 54 or whatever.
Yeah.
And they saw the UFOs flying out of the mountain.
Or wherever they were flying out of.
And then he went back to where he went back with somebody.
Yeah.
And they showed the books that he used to work there, and people recognized him.
Oh yeah.
And the government was like, "You never worked here," but he was "Yes, I did. Everybody saw it. Here's proof that I worked here."
Exactly. More federal government shenanigans, trying to cover up the alien stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's so sad and embarrassing that we live in this situation where we've let our country get away from us. Have you ever read Alexis de Tocqueville,
No.
Democracy in America?
No.
Okay, well, that's a book. That's a book you should read.
What do you mean let your country get away from us?
The United States, when it was formed, was created by a community of people who understood the
White slave-owning males.
who understood the dangers of a oppressive government, and they created a system that was designed to keep their government small
And to keep white males in power.
Oh, what does that have to do with anything?
That has to do with everything, man. That's the
So
thing.
you're saying that if it had been black people instead of white people, they would have tried to make a system where the government got big and people
No.
didn't have personal liberty?
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, so
I'm saying
you
that
keep turning the discussion to race because you're a racist, because everything has to do with race instead of
I'm
first
just saying
principles.
that you need to stop
I'm
looking
talking
at
about
America
first principles.
first principles
It
of
doesn't
America that was
matter.
founded by slave-owning white males, man.
Slave-owning
and
white- okay.
land-owning. That's what I'm saying. You should not keep propping these morons up who lived hundreds of years ago and who didn't know anything. They didn't know anything. They did not know anything. I have more knowledge than George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all those guys in my pocket.
You don't have more knowledge about human nature. You don't have more
Yeah, I
knowledge
do.
about political systems.
Yes, I do. All I have to do is open up my phone and ask my phone.
But you've never done it.
So
You have access to the information.
Yeah.
You don't have mastery of the information.
and neither did they.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. Because they didn't know the information.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. They had no idea what the world was going to be like. Just like you have no idea what the world will be like.
It's not about the
so you
world.
need to stop looking
Not
in the
about
past and you need to
circumstances.
start looking towards the
They
future.
weren't concerned about circumstances.
That's the problem.
They
the
were
problem.
concerned about human nature.
You just explain the problem. They weren't concerned about circumstances. They only cared about making sure
No.
that white, slave-owning,
Wrong.
land-owning
Wrong.
males remained in power.
Wrong.
No, that's not wrong. And now you're sounding like Trump. Wrong, false. This government, bad, huge. You're wrong, dude.
You
come
are
on.
wrong. You are wrong. And
No, I'm not.
And
That's fact.
I'm going to give the Columbia College Chicago History and Sociology Department a C- for the job they did educating you.
Great. Because I don't believe the bullshit that you constantly spew.
Because you haven't even gone to the trouble to read the source material.
The Constitution?
John Locke's second treatise on government.
I don't care.
That's the
He lived
problem.
hundreds of years ago.
Doesn't
His
matter.
opinion does not matter to me.
Human nature has not changed.
Yes, it has.
Okay. You can believe that, but if you think human nature has changed, then what's the issue with Donald Trump? If everybody's
He is the problem.
if everybody's altruistic now,
No, the problem is that they're not, and that they're stuck in the mindset that you and him are both stuck in. That's the problem.
so you need to read John Locke's second treatise on government. You need to read Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. You need to read the Gulag Archipelago by Dostoevsky.
Why?
You've got so that you can have an informed and conscientious discussion about these kinds of things. You're just basing your arguments on Twitter and Facebook.
No, I'm not. I'm basing my arguments on what I believe is right and wrong. Because I have a moral compass, which clearly you don't.
Well, you can have a moral compass, but if you don't have any context, then your compass wheel is just spinning around in free space. You have to understand what's really going on before you can evaluate it.
I do understand what's really going on.
How?
What do you mean how? Based on every interaction I've had with every other human being my entire life.
On where? Twitter, Facebook?
Everywhere. When I go to the grocery store, when I talk to people, when I'm out and about, when I'm everywhere.
Yes, being nice to individuals and having conversations with people and one-on-one interactions has always been the strength of the United States. The issue is that when people act in groups and they become more than a single interaction and it becomes,
Like MAGA and the Proud Boys?
yes, and like the PETA and like,
PETA? Now you're attacking PETA? They want to make the people that want to make sure that animals are treated right? You're attacking PETA now.
well, if you
You
do
really want to
if-
attack PETA? You want a PETA to come after you?
if you do some research into PETA and who funds them
Oh my God.
and the implications of what they've done in the past,
my God.
they've done more harm than good.
PETA.
Yes.
How
Do
is
the research.
How has PETA done more harm than good?
Because more animals have died.
Because of PETA?
Yeah.
How backwards are you, man?
You know who Temple Grandin is?
Who's Temple Grandin? Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Temple Grandin is the autistic lady who figured out how to make the slaughterhouse is less stressful on the cows. You know the Temple Grandin story?
No, but I know that I think that all of those slaughterhouses should be shut down. I don't think that anyone should be eating red meat.
Okay,
I mean,
so
minus maybe free game hunting, that's okay, but we need to get rid of the slaughterhouses altogether.
you're very preachy.
I'm not preaching, I'm just telling you what I believe.
Okay, that's fine. You're welcome to believe that.
That red meat is bad?
You're welcome to believe that. I mean, it's not.
Yes, it is.
The science doesn't back you up.
The karmic impact when you eat red meat is terrible
For you.
for everyone.
Okay, so now that's why I say you're preachy.
No, I'm just saying that, and we need to another thing we need to invest in is things like Impossible and Beyond Burgers and things like that.
Okay, well the health there's a lot of research being done on those meat alternative burgers, and they're much worse for you than the red meat.
Karmically, they're not.
No, karmically they're not. Physically they are.
And again, I don't necessarily believe that.
Do the research.
It's mainly
They're
pea
looking at it.
protein.
It's the saturated fat and the oils that they blend into it.
And pea protein.
Okay. I'm saying it's a mix.
And saturated fat is not bad for you. That's backwards.
It's the hydrogenated stuff. It's the way. Anyway, Joe Rogan did a half an episode on how bad those things are for you. Just go look it up.
Because he's a meat lover. He loves steak.
He loves.
Obviously,
He loves elk. Not
Obviously,
steak.
he'd be attacking that. He's all for no. He loves steak. Him and Joey Diaz talk about going and smoking cigars and getting a big ass steak all the time.
Okay.
He's a meat lover. Which let him be. That's fine, dude. Do your thing. But still, the slaughterhouse, another thing, the environmental impact of the methane from all the cows that they're constantly. That's another big environmental thing that we need to shut down. We need to stop with the mass murdering of bovines.
Yeah. Well, bovines are probably overproduced in the world. That's for sure.
And pigs too. And pigs are intelligent animals.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure cows are too. They're like big dogs.
Okay. Well, you've never raised a cow, so I think most people who've raised a cow would say you're either dissing dogs or being over generous to cows, because dogs are typically a little bit more intelligent than a cow. I mean, a cow will stand out in the rain and just stand there and die if you don't tell it to get inside of the barn. It's not super intelligent.
Well, pigs are.
Yes. Pigs are more intelligent than cows, for sure.
And we should not be slaughtering pigs.
Well, I mean, if pigs in the wild, left to their own devices, destroy everything. I mean, they have to hunt tens of thousands of feral hogs in
That's
the
not
south.
the same as mass-produced pigs. That's what I'm saying. We need to shut down the slaughterhouses that are in the places that grow, the places that raise pigs. I'm sure there's giant pig farms all over the United States and all over the world that treat the pigs like shit and raise them in shit.
Yeah, I agree. That's bad. Factory farming is no bueno. But one of the things that Michael Schellenberger talks about in his recent book is that the environmental impact of feedlot versus grass-fed beef is actually lower. That you get more unit of consumable protein for less area of land and water and fertilizer using feedlot beef than grass-fed beef. Now, obviously.
Yeah, so let's
the
put all the cows in cages.
I'm just saying the cows are obviously happier being in a grass-fed environment, and to your point, the karmic impact. But if you're worried about the impact on the environment,
That's why I'm saying we need to shut them all down. It doesn't matter if it's grass-fed or feedlot. We need to shut them all down.
okay, well,
We need to say no. If you want to have a hamburger and steak, you can go and buy a cow and raise it yourself. And then you have to kill it yourself. And then you have to process it yourself.
okay, preachy again. Yeah, I mean, you can virtue signal and be preachy all you want, but when you suggest,
No, I also practice this. I don't eat red meat.
When you suggest things for other people that are so, onerous that they would never happen in a modern society, then you're just virtue signaling.
In the current modern society, you don't know what my generation and the generation that follows me are going to do.
Well, I know they're not going to be slaughtering cows.
What?
I know they're not going to be slaughtering cows.
Yeah.
The other relationship that we need to talk about is energy density and how that enables the establishments of cities. You're such a fan of living in a big city, Chicago, Los Angeles. None of that is possible with low density energy. The only way that cities can exist, I mean, think about it, if it takes an acre of wood to sustain one household, and you put 13 million people together into a city, you would wipe out the entire forest of the entire state of California just to power Los Angeles and San Francisco.
No one is saying we should be burning wood.
Right. So
why do you keep going back to that?
Because solar and wind are even less energy dense than wood.
Currently, not if we covered all the rooftops in Los Angeles with solar panels.
Wouldn't be enough.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't. Because we don't know what the future solar panels could be like. They could be like the size of my watch, and they could be able to suck in enough energy to power an entire building.
Let me explain this again to you. Human beings consume, in a modern society, more energy than is delivered to the roof to the roof of their home. Human beings use more energy than the sun provides.
Because we don't have better nets.
No, period. 100% of the energy.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Chancellor, we know how much energy the sun is delivering to the surface of the earth. We can measure that. We know how many photons are hitting a square inch of earth from the sun. We haven't
created something that can recycle that energy. We haven't
been able to recycle it.
Bringing the energy can't be created or destroyed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So the amount that hits the earth is the amount that's there available to catch. No matter how good or efficient your catcher is, there is a finite amount of energy that is hitting the surface of the earth from the sun.
Yeah.
If you captured all of it on a rooftop of a house, the people living in that house consume more energy than that.
I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that.
It's not something you have to believe. Just do the research and find out for yourself. It's the truth. It's a fact. There are facts.
You just said Elon Musk said that if everyone had solar
because
panels,
Elon Musk is trying to sell battery packs and solar panels.
Well, if solar panels don't actually work, then why would he be trying to sell them?
They collect energy.
Okay.
They don't collect enough to be.
Exactly. That's the problem. We need to have better nets.
No. Better nets would be great. I'm still saying the only way.
Here's what you don't understand. If we had solar panels that were the size of a watch that could collect 100%, then you could fill a roof with watch-sized solar panels that would be collecting 10 times more than those, or 100 times more than those giant solar panels.
No.
Yes.
We're already at 49% efficiency.
Yes.
They
per
wouldn't.
solar panel.
Yeah, they
The
wouldn't.
big ones. I'm saying if we can somehow create a
You don't
technology
know
that
how
would
photovoltaic cells work.
if we can somehow create a technology that could shrink the solar panels that could collect more than the big ones, just like a giant computer versus the one in my phone. That's the same kind of mindset I'm talking about.
Right. The size of the solar panel is irrelevant.
No, it's not. Because you can fit more solar panels on your roof if they're the size of a watch.
They're photovoltaic cells. The big solar panels are just grids of millions of photovoltaic cells. It's the same cells that are in the watch size.
So we need to make ones that are billions within the size of a watch.
No, the cells, the photovoltaic cells that are currently available capture half the available energy.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what that means?
They capture half the energy. You just said it.
So, if they, in their current size,
Uh-huh.
okay, that means if they improved from all your research to 100% efficiency,
Uh-huh.
they would be half as big.
What?
Right? Think about a square of photovoltaic cells that is 1 foot wide by 2 feet long.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that current technology is capturing 49% of the available energy that's delivered by the sun.
Yeah, and you're saying they would need to be 2 by 4.
No, I'm saying if you make the cells, the photovoltaic cells that make up this panel,
Uh-huh.
twice as good, meaning they capture 100% of the energy available from the sun, then you could capture the same amount of energy with a 1 by 1 panel instead of a 1 by 2 panel.
Yeah.
1 by 1 panel
Yeah.
is half as big as a 1 by 2 panel.
Yeah. So you agree.
Current technology is 49%.
Uh-huh.
The best technology you could ever create with all of your research would be half as big.
Uh-huh. So you could
You could, from the size of the roof that you are currently covered solar panels with some amazing breakthrough that somehow took you from 49% efficiency to 98% efficiency, doubling its effectiveness.
Yep.
You would collect twice as much energy on that rooftop as you do now.
Yeah.
Still less than the people in the household consume.
See, I don't think that's true. I think that's just something that you're just saying and making up. Because there's no way to know that.
The only way that they would consume less energy is if all of the appliances and everything and all of the stuff they do inside the house used less electricity.
Yeah. So why don't we figure that out? Everything needs to be more energy efficient.
Correct. But it's not going to be about solar panels. It's going to be about all of the appliances and all of the stuff that people do. It's going to be about the kinds of things they use to heat their home. Like you can't have the current base heater shit. Like all the stuff we have now, the super energy efficient heat pump stuff is seven times more effective than
Everything needs to get better. That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying. Is you need to start looking at the future and stop basing everything on the past and on people who have been dead for hundreds of years and who didn't know shit.
social engine.
Just like I don't know shit compared to like the next generation or the generation after that. I won't know any. No matter how much knowledge I'm able to acquire in this life, I still will not know more than the next generation and the generation after that.
Okay, well.
Because that's how knowledge works. It builds.
Right.
So you need to stop looking at the past.
No, you don't. Because if you stop looking at the past, you're destined to repeat it. And as a generation, that probably tends to be true, that generation on generation tends to be, have access to more information than the prior generation. That's not the same thing as smarter. Okay. You saw the movie Idiocracy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's because the boomers were in control.
What are you talking about? The movie Idiocracy was about where this country was going based on pop culture.
Yeah, right when the boomers were in control.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. That's when that movie came out.
Okay.
The boomers were running everything.
All right.
And they still are.
Well, let me put it this way. I would never vote for a professional wrestler for president, but you might, or at least you'd be a hell of a lot more likely to than I would.
If it was The Rock.
Exactly. Point made.
Because he's he's an incredibly intelligent human being.
Okay. I'm sure he is.
He is. Now you're going to attack. So in this episode, you have attacked The Rock, Greta, PETA, the solar panel industry, Elon Musk. You've attacked the future.
I provided a framework to understand how to progress society by going backwards. No.
You're trying to take steps backward.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to explain that there is a path to societal development that improves society's relationship with the environment. If you use nuclear energy, it is so cheap and so abundant that you could power machines that would suck the carbon out of the air. You could solve carbon emissions and global warming with machinery powered by nuclear plants to undo all the damage that the fossil fuel industry has done.
Or you could have rooftop gardens, and like they're doing in China.
Yes. You can get rid of population density. You can disperse the cities throughout the countryside. But as long as you want to stack people
That's not what I was saying.
That's what you are saying.
No, it's not. I'm talking about those all those buildings in China that are covered in trees that are sucking the pollution out.
A tiny, tiny fraction of the pollution that the building itself produces. Yes,
I don't think that's
a tiny,
true.
tiny fraction of the pollution that the building, creating the building and having the people travel to the building every day and heat and cool the building while they're inside. Yes, the trees on the outside are decorations. They are not sucking up all the pollution that building produces. And if you think that, you've been sold a bridge in the desert. All right? You have been lied to and manipulated. Trees on the outsides of buildings do not mitigate the pollution that high-rise buildings create.
Okay.
All right. Do the research. Look at the math. It's so small of a percentage, it's not even measurable.
Okay.
If you are going to use rooftop gardens to solve the carbon problem, you have to have rooftops spread out, 1-story buildings. When you have 30-story buildings and you concentrate a bunch of people in condos and apartments. So you want
everyone to have a ranch home spread out across America, and you want and all of it to be powered by nuclear. And it doesn't matter if the water gets poisoned. It doesn't matter if the plant explodes. Doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is the only way that you can have a power source to provide energy for people concentrated into cities without creating all of this carbon from burning coal and oil
mining coal
is nuclear.
Okay.
There is no source of energy that is dense enough to replace coal and oil except nuclear that would allow you to have people concentrated into cities.
Okay.
This and the coal and natural gas industry and oil and petroleum industry are the ones that have propagated this myth about how dangerous nuclear energy is. It isn't. It isn't that dangerous. Many magnitudes of fewer people have died as a result of nuclear accidents than have died as a result of accidents at oil refineries and oil wells and natural gas wells. I mean, 11 people died on the horizon in the Gulf of Mexico, let alone the 300 million gallons of oil that spilled into the Gulf.
We need to stop using fossil fuels. And fracking.
And the only replacement that makes cities possible is nuclear.
Currently, yes. I agree with that.
Yes.
Currently.
So this idea that environmentalists are being, the environmental movement is totally being manipulated by the oil and gas industry to keep nuclear energy off the table. This whole idea that nuclear waste and 3 Mile Island and Fukushima and it's going to blow up the world. A nuclear meltdown is when the cooling system around the nuclear rod fails and it melts and it goes down. It's not an explosion. Nuclear power
what
plants
happened at
don't
Chernobyl?
explode. They were running some experiment and the reaction got out of control. You
said they don't explode. That exploded.
It didn't explode. No, it caught on fire. It didn't explode. If there was an explosion, it was because something else around it exploded. It was not the nuclear fuel that exploded.
Okay.
It doesn't explode. It's not concentrated enough. It's not in.
You just said it's the most dense.
It is, but it's not.
Then you just said it's not concentrated.
I said it's not concentrated enough to explode. The processing of a nuclear fuel rod is less than the processing of nuclear fuel for a weapon. So they concentrate it, 5 or 6 times more to create a bomb than they use when they do energy for a power plant.
Okay.
So the nuclear fuel in a power plant, there is no danger of it exploding.
It's just 1/5 less dangerous than a nuclear bomb. That's what you just said.
And it's 10 times less dangerous than an oil refinery.
Okay.
That's my point.
Okay. Yeah,
I always have
we do
to
not have oil refineries.
You always have to weigh the risks against the alternatives.
Yeah, and the current alternatives are not good because we need to invest in better solar panels.
That's going backwards.
No, it's not. Because we don't know, man.
You do.
No,
you know how
we
much
don't.
you know how much available energy is being delivered by the sun to the surface of the earth. You do know that. You also know that the current solar panel technology is 49% efficient, which means that the only way that the most you could ever get out of them is twice what they're doing now.
Yeah.
That means instead of covering a roof with solar panels to provide 25% of the energy that a household needs, you could provide 50% of the energy that a household needs. But remember, that's a 1-story house, right? And then we're getting back to the whole population density issue. You could put solar panels all over the top of a 30-story condo. That's not going to do anything for everybody who lives on floors 1 through 29. Only the people in the penthouse would get half of their energy provided by the solar panels. The rest of the building is shit out of luck. You have to have a dense energy source.
So install bikes in every single condo.
Yeah. People are going to move to a city so they can sit on a stationary bike to generate their own electricity.
Why not? Be healthy.
Okay. Well, that's your vision of the city of the future. What song are we going to play this week? Yeah, you can tell the fall story.
The false. Okay, well, this song is a collaboration between me and Jason David Frank, who was one of my childhood heroes. He played the Green Power Ranger, and yeah, it's pretty awesome that I basically turned one of his poems into a song that he recorded, and he was like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" So we released it, and we're working on another one currently, but. This is fall, and it's really weird that it's real because he was like one of my childhood. He was like the Power Rangers, He was a Power Ranger, like a real life Power Ranger. So, anyways, I hope you enjoy fall.
See you next week.
Adios.
Closer. Fall. It's been a while since I wrote. I'm sure at times everyone's moved. See me. was. All I could do is pray and hope. Shake it off, but when I do, my mind says, nope. Nope. Shake it off, but when I do, my mind says, nope. I mean, how do I deal with this? How do I even cope? I don't want to slide, but it is a slippery slope. Nope. Shake it off, but when I do, my mind says, nope. I'm struggling, I'm grabbing, I slip because I missed the rope. My emotions are overflowing like a waterfall. The words I speak are positive. Well, nope. Shake it off, but when I do, my mind says, nope. Overall, the stress occurring regularly is too fast. It's a hand-side. Emotions are thrown like a curveball. But how can you even breathe when the air feels like ethanol? I want to fight back my mind. I want to brawl, but when I punch, I'm on the ground. I mean, I see the takedown. I begin to sprawl, but I miss. Shake it off, but when I do, my mind says, what did you just crawl? What did you just crawl? Then I disappear, I'm gone. And it's just me, staring at the ceiling wall. People can see my pain. You can see it in my eyeball. The sun would shine, but the darkness moves in, becomes a rainfall. I'm all over the place, a human pinball. So I delay and I begin to stall. Please, God, take my hand before I fall. Please, God, take my hand before I fall. God, take my hand before I fall. But it is a slippery slope. It's been a while since I rode. Fall.